No? Well, I'll tell you, Art. I've been watching you with that kid a long time. You're demanding too much from him. Nobody can be perfect, so don't ride him so hard. When he does something you don't like, remember he's a person in his own right.
Okay.
That's really nice.
Tell me all about it. I need you all about it.
Now, this is 2 weeks coming out of probably one of the best times I've had in quite a while, I'd say. And I wanted to make a video covering just my time and experience at HolySmoke or smokefest 24 and just kind of like give a review essentially of like what I experienced there, the things I came across, and kind of things I wanted to like put together in one video just because there were so many things and takeaways from that whole entire weekend. And in essence, part of the reason I also wanted to make this video was because to me, like I got more than a great time out of it. I got more than just listening to some great music. I got more than an experience. The value that came out of just going there, I came back with just really an interactive experience to where really I could see where if you were maybe an up and coming artist, a beginner artist, or just someone who just loves music flat out, you could come out with so many different things out of this experience. So I'm going to give my thoughts and possibly really good reasons why you yourselves, if you're watching this, should definitely come out to any smokefest events in the future, or really any independent Christian music festival that's out there. Now, I think one of the biggest things that stood out to me at the festival was definitely the artist panel, or sorry, the Indie Institute, if you will, right? Like every year, they always host the Indie Institute, which is pretty helpful for any just upcoming artist, or maybe just an artist that really just started out, or maybe somebody who's just been in the game for quite some while and they're kind of just looking to see what's trending in the Christian music space, trending just in general in the music industry, and so many different things. But the biggest takeaway I wanted to first talk about was the super producer panel, which essentially consisted of Rodney Jerkins and Kato on the track, who I've been kind of familiar with. He's kind of like pretty big in like the independent hip hop circles, just in general hip hop. But I mean, hearing from someone who's produced from everyone from, you know, Junior Lucas, E40, Jack Harlow, and a lot of big names, it was very interesting. I think first of all, the biggest thing that was interesting about Smokefest, or not really Smokefest, but the panel, was just the fact that different people from around the industry were incorporated. Even if they weren't Christian, it was just helpful to just have them in for the sake of just like general music knowledge, right? Because I think especially for a lot of Christian artists out there, it's always helpful to have just general brush up and just knowledge on how you're going to build out your music career. But Kato's story in particular was special to me just because he talked about how essentially he's been making music since like 2005, right? And that's really crazy to see, just because when we look at where CHH is moving Christian hip hop in general, it's a lot of young artists out there, but the most successful people, quote unquote, or the people that have been able to make a living off of this, they've been doing this for quite a long time, essentially. Not even just artists, like producers. To have a guy who looks like he's in his 30s or even younger, almost, talk about that he's been essentially making music since like 2005. So I would assume he's like well in his 40s, really. Was really inspiring to just hear his story of just like how he gradually progressed and how he tried different things. He wanted to be a producer originally, but it didn't work out early on, so he went to being an artist and eventually got back on track to being a producer. But it just showed the longevity of what it takes to really be an artist. No matter what your intentions are, if you want to make music to glorify God, if this is something that you believe God has called you to and to make a living off of, realistically, if God really wills you to make a living off this is like the longevity that you're gonna need. And just the stories he talked about were just amazing to hear and really put things into perspective to show that like maybe you're like your favorite artist with like 20-30,000 monthly listeners. I mean, like maybe they've been making music for a few years and they're not where they want to be at, but realistically, this music game is really a game of longevity. The other thing of note as well was just hearing Rodney Jerkins' story, a little bit of how he grew up and how he really got started at a young age, like I think like 9 or 13, which is like amazing to see, to know like if you really want to get somewhere in life, not only do you have to start young, but you really got to know that you want to be fully committed to the craft or the passion. But what I liked about his story, to be honest, the biggest takeaway was just him talking about the management of just Gavi. Now, I brought up the fact that we're no better than the next person if we can't forgive another brother or or sister in Christ that falls. And realizing that, it was like, that was a thought that floated in the back of my mind. And it was like, as soon as he brought it up, it was like, that jumped the line to the front. It was like something that sparked like a realization that it is indeed true. And it falls in line with the characteristic of just the fact that while we were deep in our sin, it was like God still chose to forgive us while we were undeserving, to give us the gift and salvation of just eternal life. Realizing that, it was like, it's true, right? And I think it's a reference to Ephesians as well. But especially for the people that have been completely against this situation from the start. And this was a point that crossed my mind that is a good point. Even if we were to forgive this person, even if we were to quote unquote forgive them, it's kind of like, how do we know they're not going to go back and do the same thing again? Just because in this world today, man, there's so many crazy and terrible things that happen in today's world. And to see people get caught doing something, and then it's like they say they're going to turn from their ways and not do it again. And then it's like they go back into doing the same thing. It's like, how can you even take a gamble and bet and trust that this person is sincere? And the thing that crossed my mind was the fact that, here's the thing too, as much as it's the characteristic of God to forgive us as well, it's also in the characteristic of God to really only take us as far as we're willing to let him when we let go of our sin. Because do keep in mind that God is really not going to honor the wicked and let them prosper. God is only willing to take us so far as long as we're willing to turn our hearts to him and repent. And if in Gavi's case, he doesn't choose to do that, then he will suffer more of the consequences of that. And that it'll be really on him to make that decision if he wants to rebuild things out the right way, or if he wants to go rebuild things his own way. But that was something that definitely crossed my mind. And I realized this is something like we all have to be at odds with at some point. We have to come to a crossroads, right? And we have to realize that we're going to have to make a decision with that. This isn't an attempt to bias anyone to pick a side, but rather just pick apart that situation, just because some of Rodney's points were actually piquing my interest, especially because going towards the end of his panel time, I also realized too that this is basically like a second chance and second wind for Gavi to basically be under a new record label situation, just because with being with Reach for so long and having the comfortability and the stability of being around that fan base and everything that was offered to him, he lost all of that, right? And now being under Aliens Alive, which is a new record label around Christian hip hop, what I realized, especially towards the end of that time on the panel, was the fact that if there's one person to help Gavi and bring him under his wing to help him get back up and rebuild things the right way, then I would say that Rodney is definitely the right guy for the job. And he made me realize that given his experience in the music industry and just of all the people he's worked with, this is really on Gavi to build things out the right way. Now, ultimately, I don't know how far that's going to take him, but again, from what I talked about and reiterated, God is only going to take someone so far as long as they're willing to turn to him and just like truly have a heart after him. And I think with the whole new situation that he set up with, I think Rodney Jerkins is definitely the right person to take him under his wing and just help him grow out of that. So that was definitely interesting for sure. Now, the opportunity to just make friends with people around the space was definitely another key thing I took away from that experience. Just because of the fact that you're in a building with so many like-minded people, it just leads and creates to so many different chances and opportunities to just like interact with people, whether if it's just like a small interaction or just like a longer interaction. It just created so many different situations to just talk to people and just create opportunities to get to know people and build relationships. Like me flying down there on my own by myself, I mean, it's my second year going there, but being able to go there this year was a lot more smooth just because of the fact that I made so many great friends and just people that I got to meet and talk to. And mainly for the fact that if you take a lot of people that have a similar interest in CHH, you know what I mean, you're bound to run into people that have the same or other similar interests as you. Like the proximity of everybody too was like the craziest thing to me, just because of how close everybody was. Like nobody was made to feel as if the artists and the fans were like separated. Like everybody was in the same building. So to walk in and to see Madison Ryan Ward like literally just beside you, and she's just off to the side having a casual conversation, or just like seeing like DJ Michael pacing and walking around the building because, you know, he's helping run the festival. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like, it was just pretty sick to see, to be honest. And at first it was pretty awkward to like talk to not just the artists, but really everyone, just because of the fact that everybody's online. So day one was a little bit weird. Like I remember with Bats came up to me and he just randomly out of the blue like introduce himself. And I was kind of like, I was thrown off because it was weird to like be in an interaction like that, just because of like you only notice these people from a distance, just like off to the side in an online setting. But in real life, to like talk to these people, it was pretty sick to see. And day one, the conversation was a little bit weird. It was pretty short interaction, but day two, like we got to swing and we got to talking, man, and it was just like a natural conversation that flowed. But that was pretty great to see. And it was also just great to see you guys as well. Like a lot of you guys that are subscribed, you guys came up to me, and I mean, personally, like I don't consider my channel of any significant size, because really anything under 1,000 subs is like not significant at all. But you know, when you get 1,200 people under a building, like, you know, go figure, like you're gonna meet people in the same niche and space. And I really thank y'all for just like coming up and just, you know, saying what's up, just talking. And you know, everybody from Curtis, from North Carolina, and just like a lot of you guys who I got to know and hang out with. It was just great just chilling and just casually talking with you guys. The easy networking too, that was a great aspect as well, just because of the fact that I noticed it not only on my end, but noticing it passively to the side, like seeing artists like literally connect and talking about like, yo, like let's work, man. Like, you know, I'll text you. Like people were effortlessly in and out, just like willing to connect with one another, different artists just wanting to collaborate with different people. It was a great experience too for just like other artists to like meet other artists as well, producers as well, and just have a casual just conversation that slowly builds into a relationship and potential future connections. And for me as well, I guess like as a general creative, just talking to other people around the space, videographers, music pages as well, like the fact that I was able to talk to David from, you know, CHH Talk and the Fazbrick team, and just Lee Thomas and DJ Rome, who it was my first time meeting the other guys I work with on the Proper Excel team. So many Christian music pages and people just around the industry, aspiring label A&Rs, and just like people who truly believe in the vision God has set out for them, and they're really going after it. It was definitely great to see. I think though with HolySmoke, I think the biggest thing too was just the fact that this festival was definitely, I would say this festival definitely broke the social norms of how we view, experience, and kind of just like interact with the Christian music space, or like really our experiences within the space. But it was just the fact that, you know, throughout the weekend, I got to hear stories from other people of their experiences at other regular conferences, youth conferences, tours, or whatever it is, of them being in a different setting and different demographic of people, and just how that experience was. So, you know, going to a certain artist tour or whatever it is, and or just like wherever they're performing, and it's kind of like they want to make friends along the way. It's a little bit weird because people are a little bit cliquish and they already have their own set of people. It kind of felt like a little bit exclusive, right? Hearing those stories, and also hearing how with some artists trying to get the same energy that like I experienced at HolySmoke, it's kind of like you won't get that over there. You know, you're trying to get them to reciprocate the same energy, and they're kind of like, they're either not really feeling it or they're kind of just like not used to it. But hearing those stories is not to say that these things happen pretty much all across the board at those types of events, just because, you know, all of our experiences are subjective, of course. But it was just the fact that noting that made me realize that it definitely broke the social norms, and made me realize like the need for this type of stuff around the Christian music space. It's just in general, not just with just Christian hip hop, it's definitely needed. Considering how Dill and Mowgli first met, I don't know if you guys know the story, but if I'm correct, they basically met at a conference like 9-10 years ago. And so to see where they met and kind of like built it up to where they're at now, it's kind of like, if this is the vision they had like 9-10 years ago to have this type of interaction, then I would say like they definitely hit the goal and apex of what it truly means to like be in fellowship, community, and just connect with different people and build those lifelong relationships you can see like 10 years down the line. All right, now the next thing I was going to cover was pretty much like, I guess, the random things I experienced, not only at Smokefest altogether, but like really throughout the weekend, and really like the city, or exploring the city of Nashville. But one of the things that was great to experience and learn about while I was there, and I would actually highly recommend you guys actually check it out if you guys get the chance to go to Nashville next time, is just going to the Museum of Hip Hop and just like African American arts, and really going through the history of hip hop, but more so like going to the roots of where hip hop first started. Or more specifically, towards the end of my tour, was visiting the gospel section and just seeing the roots of gospel music and how that got started. And it's just amazing to see, because obviously Christian hip hop is a branch and extension of of modern hip hop, but to go back to like the roots of how the church and just Black American gospel music had an influence on just hip hop and Christian hip hop today, it was really cool to see. Artists sounding different online versus on stage is completely two separate experiences, I'd have to say. Just because there's certain artists or even certain songs that like they might not hit the same, but it takes you a different experience and opportunity to like see that artist or that song in a different light, or like hear it in a different light, man. And going and seeing a lot of artists perform just different songs pretty much helped me add these songs into my rotation coming out of the festival.
Only time you'll catch me sitting down is on a flight. Even when I'm on the sick, I'm not afraid of
Tory's fit on Indie Tribe, that was another thing as well, just because going into that weekend, I realized he really fit in a lot better than I expected him to, just because me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of collectives adding different things, just because so many things can go wrong with collectives. But Tory's fit, especially on the Indie 500 tape, it was really, really good, and he really got the crowd going and immersed into it. And I just really like the fact that going into the weekend or going out of it, it helped me show that Tory, in technically his first Smoke Festival, he was able to find a role and identity around Indie Tribe and just like, yeah, show us how he fits in creatively. So yeah, finding out people's ages, that was like another weird thing too, I'd say, just because it is crazy to me how many people, guys, how many people, they look like they're in their 20s but they're really in their 30s or 40s, and people that low-key that look like they're in their 30s or 40s, they look like they're pushing 30 but they're really, you know, in their 20s. I won't say who I found out was like really younger than I thought they were, but there are so many of y'all that like were a lot younger than I realized, or a lot older than I realized. So that's like a weird thing, but that was of note as well. Another lesson that I was learning coming out of that weekend is that I regret not putting Gavin the Hot Rod in my video when I made my list of, I guess, like 5 lyrical CHH artists that weren't talked about, which goes back to that video I made a month ago about Jackie Hill Perry. And I basically down the line brought up a list of artists who aren't talked about enough because there isn't enough visibility like that. We're really in CHH with different artists, a variety of artists. But one of those artists was Gavin the Hot Rod, and I remember Proper XL took basically my video and they basically made it into like I guess my list of 5 artists who aren't lyrically talked about enough. And I honestly regret not putting Gavin the Hot Rod, yeah, in that video, just because after that Midnight Cypher on Friday, just hearing him spit, man, it was like it blew my mind, because I remember hearing him back on Peace King on that Bodega project, and it was just like hearing him spit, I realized like, oh, like the way he's talking, especially on one of my favorite songs on the project, he's just hard, bro. Like, we're just talking about the hard life he lived, and just him like really thugging it out, and then like making that switch to serving Christ and really speaking from where he came from and just the different things he experiences. But listening to him a little bit more at the Midnight Cypher made me realize like enough people don't talk about this guy lyrically. But I that is a regret I had. So all right, now going into the last part of the video, or like I want to say essentially like the most important part of the video, man, is just the fact that I remember I put up on my story something that sparked pretty much a conversation online, and that is the fact that I personally don't know if Smoke 24 could ever be topped. It's to be honest, it's gonna be really hard to top off what they did, just because to go into Saturday night and to end the night off with like people like Shipley, who's like a longtime CHH legend at this point, Andy, who we're seeing more and more of the return of, and also not only seeing him perform great songs that we all grew up on, but like him bringing in Words Played was like another gear and level I didn't think like was gonna be topped. And he brought in Words Played, who I think we heard him like maybe 2-3 years ago on Andy's album, but that's a guy we haven't seen in 7 years really. You could stretch it out and say we haven't seen him in almost 10 years, but Words Played, man, to see him, especially a guy who had a sound that was so unique to the space at that time back then, to see him perform, not only see him perform, but see him perform new songs with Andy that they've been working on, was just like a unique experience you won't find anywhere else. Going out of that festival, these were things to think about, and I don't want this conversation to be a thing where there's certain expectations every year, because what Indie Tribe has done is what these older artists did for them 10-15 years ago when they were kids themselves. So even if Smokefest ended today, I think just what they've already done at this point is gonna pave the way for the next artist or events 10, maybe 20 years down the line. But in sparking up a conversation, it also opened up like people throwing suggestions for how to, I guess, like diversify and expand Smokefest. And these are really good suggestions I figured like I'd throw in the video and mention. Starting off with Swiss CHH, who definitely had the strongest suggestion out of the ones I read, which is like to add and expand a third day and throw in a segment called Sunday Service, where essentially, you know, on a Sunday, you run Sunday service. And that would be pretty interesting to have people come back for one more day and just like, you know, be encouraged and sit in and kind of see how that would play out. That would be really great to do and just connect with and have like, I don't know, like someone like Tripley who's been like pastoring for quite some time. It'd be interesting if he performed Saturday night and then he preached Sunday morning. I don't know, that'd be pretty cool, but it would definitely be encouraging. But then again, that would take a lot of strings to pull off the more days you add on to a festival. But for sure, that is a really strong take by Swiss CHH. Another suggestion too I heard was adding like the basketball game back. I wasn't there for the earlier days of Smoke, but I heard like they used to run basketball games for the artists, like an all-star game, and that'd be pretty cool. And I don't know, maybe with incorporating it back, you instead of 5-on-5, it's like you do 3-on-3 tournaments with like balance out the teams with like, I don't know, it'd be interesting to see Lecrae, who I heard is pretty tall, Andy Minio, who plays a little bit of ball, and like Wande on the same team, right? Like how would it be when it's like you got a big and you got your two guards, you know, playing together, right? That'd be really interesting to see and mishmash like different teams in the mix. But yeah, and then lastly, personally, this is my suggestion, but I know CHH Talks, he recently sparked the conversation a few days ago about these guys, and I want to incorporate this into the video. And that is, guys, hear me out, man. We need to bring back the Dream Junkies, bro. Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. We need to bring back the Dream Junkies, all right? Considering the fallout and everything that came to be like post that era and everything like that between like John and Ruslan and all that, I hope, you know, they're able to, you know, mend whatever was there. But how sick would it be to just have that return and bring them in as like a headliner for one of the days, or just like, you know, you throw them in the lineup. But to see the Dream Junkies perform, bro, that's like, that would be crazy. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not even gonna hold you. Like, that would be pretty sick. To see the Dream Junkies perform, that'd be great. But then again, like, they're all split off. Belief's doing his own thing, John's doing his own thing, Ruslan's doing his own thing. So it's kind of like, yeah, man, yeah. But that would be my own suggestion. That would be my own personal suggestion. But overall, I had a great time at Smoke, and I hope you guys did too, for anyone that showed up, and to anyone planning to show up in the future. I would definitely recommend it, man. So other than that, we're gonna end this series and video off on the coverage of HolySmoke, and we're gonna get back to the regular stuff. So yeah, guys, take care, and we'll see you next video.
Let's get it. Be like that. I'm